I don't know if you guys can hear me, but there's no sound.
Oh, we can hear you, yes.
Oh,
Yeah. Can
You
you hear
hear
us
us?
now?
wait, there we go. Now I can hear you.
Okay,
right.
I was trying to get Stacy to join us. She's muted and I'm also trying to promote her as a panelist.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Panelist has the top. No, her on it.
Okay.
That's a little trick. There you go.
All right, while you figure that out, I'm gonna open,
Stacy, you're in as an attendee. We're trying to get you to connect as a panelist.
I'm gonna go ahead and open the public hearing. This is a public hearing regarding the FY 2025 Needham High School tennis court project. I also note that after we close the public hearing, we're gonna have an informal workshop on CPC applications. So if anybody's interested, please stick around. Again, this meeting is being broadcast on the YouTube channel and it's being recorded. For this public hearing, Stacy Mulroy, Director of Parks and Recreation, will describe the need and the scope of the project. And after she is finished, I will call on the public, both present and on Zoom, to provide any comments or questions. And please raise your hand, either with the app or in person. Please try to be brief. Please don't repeat comments that have been previously made. It's okay to just say, I agree with the prior comments. Please state your name before you speak. And for those online, remember to mute your computer or your phone before or when you're not speaking. So with that, Stacy, if you're ready, we want to, give us a little presentation.
Sure. So this project is, can you guys hear me okay before I keep going?
Yeah.
Awesome. So this project is a tennis court project for the Needham High School tennis courts. The project will refurbish and renovate the 4 current courts and add 4 more courts. The courts will be post-tension concrete, which is the new norm in tennis courts. The post-tension concrete carries currently a 25-year warranty, although they are looking like it's moving more towards 40 or 50 years. Post-tension concrete is similar to, say, a parking garage, so they last quite a long time and reduces the amount of maintenance needed on the courts. I don't know if you guys have the plans or if you want me to talk more about the information, I'm happy to do so, but if you have any questions. Also in the room is Chris Gerstle, the chair of the Park and Rec Commission, so if you have anything to add, that would be great.
Do we have the plan? It might be useful to put up the plan.
Sure, I will
Just,
locate that and key it up.
Sure, I can chat a little bit more while you do that. So part of the plan for this construction project will include stormwater retention to make sure that the neighborhood, both on the north and east side of the courts, will be okay. It will also include some sound barriers in the way of arborvitaes and some plantings as requested by the planning board. We have gone before the planning board a few times. And this will be strictly tennis courts. There will be no pickleball allowed on these courts, just tennis courts. And the courts will now, actually all courts in Needham, beginning January 1st of 2025, will follow the noise ordinance. So we'll be open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. To help with the neighbors enjoying their sleep. Certainly, our original court hours were dawn to dusk, which is certainly variable depending on the time of year.
Stacey, I've got the site plan up. If
Yep,
you'd like
I
to
can
talk
see it.
about that.
Thank you. So the top 4 courts will remain pretty much as is. They'll be renovated to the post-tension concrete. And then we're adding the 4 courts to the south of those based on the picture, not on actual north and south coordinates. And as you can see along the left-hand side where the neighbors are, we've added some trees, arborvitaes, and we are certainly further away from the setback as requested by the planning board. None of the parking spaces will be disturbed. The gray area in the parking area is the stormwater retention area that the consultants and engineers have worked on. And this entire project will be ADA accessible to make sure that as we move forward, my plan is to make all of our projects ADA accessible. Playgrounds, courts, basketball courts, doesn't matter. That is our drive.
Okay. Thank you, Stacy. Now let's look to the public for any comments. I believe we have a student here that would like to speak. So why don't we start with
If you'd like to speak,
or
we just invite you to come to the empty chair here so that the microphone, everyone will be able to hear you.
Want to go with them? All right. Yeah.
hi. Let's know your name. First.
My name is Jeffrey, and I go to Elliott.
Okay, great.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeffrey Jung. I'm 9 years old in the 3rd grade at Elliott School. Today, I want to say a few words on behalf of the younger generation of tennis players in Needham. Like my friends Gabriel, Bryn, Taj, Bodie, and many more. Every day, we go to places far and wide to play tennis. I started playing tennis at 6 at the BSC in Wellesley at Babson. I love playing tennis, but there aren't enough courts near home. Last year, I got 3rd place in the North Regional Little Mo in New York City.
Yeah.
This year, I was one of the 2 players representing Boston at the National USTA Foundation event in Washington, D.C. Our dream is to bring state champions to Needham. 1 point at a time, 1 match at a time, 1 tournament at a time. By building these courts, all the people in Needham will recognize that tennis is the healthiest sport on the planet. It would benefit many people in town by building these courts. Thank you for your support.
Are we allowed to request him for our other projects that are going before CPC? Thank you.
Well, I hate to follow. Jeffrey. Is there any other members of the public here who would like to comment or question?
I'll make a comment. I wasn't planning on speaking. If I talk loud, do I have to?
Would you mind,
Yeah.
otherwise they
For the
won't
record,
necessarily hear you.
I have no intention of speaking tonight, but I think it's kind of important and it's a tough act to follow. Very nice job speaking. Anyways, my name is Howard Silverman. I grew up in Needham. I graduated in the class of 1978. And I played on the team back then. And back then they had in Needham, they had 14 courts for at Newman, for at Pollard, for at the high school, and then the 2 courts at Pollard. They weren't the best, but we did play on them. None of them were in great shape. My son graduated on those 2011, 2012 championship teams, and he played on those teams as well. And we'd go to the matches and we had some great experiences, but there were only 4 courts, and we need a 5th court. We were the only one in the Bay State League that didn't have the extra court, which is kind of embarrassing for a for a championship great system like Needham has. Anyways, I just feel not being another reason I think we need the courts is I think it's valuable for the JV players to be able to practice with the varsity, so you can see the up and coming talent that's there, and when they're in separate locations, you just don't see this talent. And I think it's really, really important. I've watched Needham evolve over the years. We've participated in a lot of sports. I've watched the baseball fields expand. I've watched, all of what's going on at Claxton now, DeFazio. We didn't have this growing up in Needham, and every sport has expanded, but the Needham courts have shrunk. And then you take pickleball, which I have played there at Mills, and I haven't, they're really primarily now pickleball courts. So I just think it's really incumbent upon this committee and whomever's involved to put these courts, this plan into action. I think it's long overdue and would be really much appreciated by the tennis community. Tennis is going to live. It's not dying with pickleball. There's a lot of avid tennis players in the area. That's all I had to say. And again, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a hand raised in the audience.
All right, one of these.
Hi, Tommy, if you'd like to speak, if you would just give us your name and address, please.
I'm not sure if you can hear me or not. I can't turn on my camera. And I'm speaking on behalf of my family. My name is Neeraj Sharma. I wanted to give I have the father of a child who's on the JV tennis team. And I just wanted to give a slightly different perspective. We are absolutely in favor of the expansion of these tennis courts, to be very clear. And part of it is we have a tennis player who does not have a driver's license. And so in order for her to get to practice, my wife and I were both professionals. We had to take time off of work in order to get her to these practices and even to matches. So from a practical point of view, and if you look at some of the surrounding schools, including Newton North, where they have expanded tennis courts in order to be on par with those other schools, as well as to make it more easier for the student athletes to get to practice right after school, I think it would be incumbent upon the town to renovate and expand these tennis courts. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Sam Williams. I have a daughter who's currently on the Needham team, and I commend everybody for coming and speaking on behalf. I think we have to look at tennis as expanding. It's been part of my life the whole time. It's part of what I do for work. It's a sport that's a life sport. So we always have a group of our community from ages 3 to 80 that will be playing, and expanding this gives them the opportunity. I know that my daughter and their teams have had a really hard time when they would go down for practices and have to remove young kids, older people that were wanting to play just socially and have fun, but they had to be removed. And I know there's been some instances just about every match, or even practices in matches. When matches go long, a birthday party had to wait because they couldn't get on the court until the match is over. And having them all in one location, I think would be the most wonderful thing. I think it offers the students that really aren't involved in tennis to just kind of funnel down and watch matches, will create a much better environment for the players to play. And then again, on the weekends, it just offers 50% is what we're growing. We have 8 now, we're gonna go to, we have 12, but 4 really aren't working. It's doubles. That's a huge thing. And for a town like Needham, when my wife or people are at other matches and people from other towns are like, what is going on with your courts? Like, we're watching Framingham get built and Natick get built and Needham, and both teams are top 15 teams in the state every year. So our tennis program is healthy, it's growing, and I think that we need to grow with it. So I thank you for your time, and
Thank you. Anybody else online?
I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay. Oh,
You-
okay.
My name is Sue McLaughlin, and I live in town, and we have 4 kids, 3 of whom have been on tennis teams. Everyone in the family plays, and you said we can offer up agreeing with points, and I just want to strongly agree with the wide range of ages that this affects, not just the tennis teams. Specifically to the tennis teams, having had the point that Dr. Sharma made about people having to transit back and forth, trying to figure out in the middle of the day how to get your freshman, junior or sophomore over to Mills or over to Newman it's really problematic. And it in general, and then the last point would be to add that for the town in general, having opportunities to play this game, which is such an all your life sport, being able to do it without the fees involved with belonging to private tennis clubs is tremendous. So, and that sadly the courts, they can't have pickleball lines on it. It's not to be a jerk, but they won't accept them for matches. They're not legal matches, for the competitive ones if they have lines on them.
Okay, thank you.
We're gonna go together. We're tag-team. Hi, my name is Karen Smith. I am the mom of three girls. My oldest was Needham High class of 22 and was the captain of the tennis team. And my daughters, Nye and Lily, are both juniors at Needham High.
And I'm Carolyn Catilla. My daughter, Nora, youngest daughter, is also on the tennis team. So our daughters were on the JV team this past year.
One of the things that I would say I would stress the most, and you mentioned it earlier, was about the mentorship side of it. By not having varsity and JV play together, we have created two very separate teams, mostly freshmen and sophomores versus juniors and seniors. And the amount that the younger girls can learn from not only watching them play and having opportunities to play with them during practices and such, but it's also about watching them be leaders on the court, how they conduct themselves, having that interaction between the two sides and having the support. When JV is done, unless a parent goes, picks them up and takes them to the varsity where the varsity team is playing, there's no interaction. And that creates a different dynamic than what you see with a lot of the other sports at Needham High. And I think that's something that has definitely been a loss for the team. In addition, because tennis is a fall sport, most freshmen, sophomore, juniors are not driving. And therefore the burden that it has, it either goes on the seniors, which is not necessarily fair always to the seniors, and they can't, handle that capacity. So I feel like it's not only just the ability to bring the teams together, but it is also from a dynamic of what you create as a team closeness, is what you create as an environment, and really setting a new kind of level for Needham High tennis.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with Kieran and with the other points that were made. Especially the point about it being a life sport and easy to play. This is something where kids could play it year round. You get your racket and a pair of shoes and you can go out and play. I know my daughter at the high school, they're doing tennis as part of their physical education right now. And they're playing on these courts that they really probably shouldn't even be playing on for gym class. But that's a great way to get kids involved in the sport. So, beyond just the tennis team, it's lots of other people who could be using, as well as everybody at the high school who would be using it for PE class as well. So yeah, fully in favor of this. Hope it passes.
And the USTA did just say it's the world's healthiest sport.
Yes. I heard
That's
that.
all.
Yes. Racket sport, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Don't be shy.
Maybe I
Hmm?
can say something.
Okay.
My name is Colin. I live in Needham since 2009. So I have two kids. My son stuck on the phone all the time, okay? And my daughter, for some reason, she loved to play tennis. I feel it's so good, for kids to go outside, right? Not stick on the phone all the time. So somehow I feel really embarrassing because Needham, the court condition is not good. I have to drive my daughter, to the Wellesley because they have better court. Go to Newton. I'm surprised Newton have like over 60 or 70 courts. And they constantly renovated their courts. And look at the Needham, right? So I think we should do a better job. So my daughter also in the varsity. And I think, I totally agree with what all the parents said. Definitely we should build a new courts and provide a much better environments for the varsity team. There's a deviation between the JV and the varsity. That's what I heard. If they can play together, right, and with the 6 court, 8 courts together, right, they learn from each other, support each other, play with each other. That's great thing to the team. That's what I want to say. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Mine as well.
Okay.
I'm on Echo. My name's Ethan Getman. Anyway, My son is an up and coming freshman. He just started. He is a very confident young man. He's already pronounced that he's gonna be bringing Needham to the state championships. So I hope that his old man can say, you know, I hope I helped you, son.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody online? No?
One more hand raised online,
Okay,
so. Jeremy? If you
Yes,
want-
hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, Jeremy Chow. I'm a tennis instructor for the Park and Rec, and I teach youth tennis for grades 1 through 8. And I just wanted to mention that I can personally attest to the exploding interest in learning tennis at the very young youth level up through middle school, because all of the Park and Rec courses for tennis lessons, group tennis lessons, are overbooked in every session. And I've been doing this for a couple of years, and we're constantly having to juggle squeezing kids in class. And so there's a high demand for that. So it's imperative that we have new safe courts to teach these kids in this ever increasing interest in this sport in this town. And from young generations on, it's growing and growing. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
all right, thank you. Okay. Last chance?
Now I move to close the hearing.
Well, we did have some email comments that came through.
Yes.
Two, one which was completely in support of the project and very brief. Another that was a little more lengthy, and it was an email from Andrew Thorenson. And one of his major concerns, Stacy, had to do with the plans for stormwater management. So do you think you could speak a little bit to that?
I will do my best. I am certainly not an engineer. But Activitas, who is our consultant for this project, has worked diligently with their stormwater people as well as with our engineers in town to come up with a great stormwater plan to make sure that the water is moving away from the neighborhoods and into the current catch basins that exist, but making it a more robust stormwater plan. Unfortunately, I can't speak much more than that. But it is outlined in the more detailed plans that we had sent earlier, and we can certainly send those around to residents or CPC if that's helpful.
Yeah.
So as most of you know, I'm the planning board representative on the CPC, and this came before the planning board. And the planning board has issued its decision to approve the application. Part of that, our own public hearing process and part of that separate application process included a review by town engineering department. And there is a stormwater management system, a new stormwater management system that's going to be installed that has been vetted through the engineering, and there is a requirement for the installation to adhere to the latest code to ensure we're achieving the highest standard possible at the time for stormwater management. And I recognize that this is a very sensitive issue across a great many neighborhoods of our town, and we're all mindful of that. And none of us on any of these boards in town take that issue lightly. And I would just say that the town has done its due diligence to satisfy itself. And the town as the applicant, is required to adhere to the obligations of the decision of the planning board. So I think that addresses the concern about stormwater management. Nothing's ever perfect, but it's as good as as it can be under the rules that we have at the time.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, if I may, since we are on an accelerated schedule, and I think we'll be voting on this the next meeting. And when we have more time during the winter cycle, would it be okay if I asked a question of Mr. Block here
About,
about the planning board.
yeah, sure. Just
So, I'm just wondering, were there any other, and I'm not expecting there are, but are there any, you issued a, an order approving, and are there any other conditions? One of them was obviously stormwater, but are there any other conditions that were, approved by the planning board, which would be relevant relative to our decision here to, not tonight, we're not making the decision tonight, but relative, if we're gonna be making the decision next time,
So as one of the newest members, with I think a couple of other here, of this board, I don't know precisely what the CPC's separate interest may be in the other conditions, but I'll lay out the ones that, that are certainly topical in our decision. We have, like you say, Reg, the decisions at part of the packet. We're not voting this tonight. We're only gonna vote to close the hearing or not. And all members should probably read the decision and we'll see all of the conditions. And that way we're all informed the next time we need to be able to take a vote on the application itself. But having said that, it was not a simple hearing process. We had multiple sessions of the hearing. And that was because the planning board was mindful of some of the neighbors' concerns. This is in a neighborhood area on the web. There are residents that are directly impacted by the expanded use of tennis in the area, both on Webster Street and
Rosemary.
Rosemary. Thank you very much. And I thought the planning board did a diligent job at hearing some of the concerns that came up, which informed our conditions, and those conditions included limitation on the hours of tennis. It included a prohibition of pickleball on the at the site, and I think we have signage that'll be installed. And well, we're extending actually the fencing in order to reduce the frequency of errant balls on neighbors' land. Just for those tennis enthusiasts that aren't here.
We're very accurate.
So we tend to be, but there is private property immediately surrounding this site. And it really is a nuisance, and it's unfair to expect a trespass on private property to pick up errant balls. And if someone's having a barbecue, and there are 8 errant balls, because not everybody is as good as your daughter. Like, for instance, if I was playing tennis, to be mindful. And so so in addition to these mitigation elements, one is to extend the fence because of these errant balls, but also to include signage on the fence that if there's a problem, who to speak to in town to try and get some immediate relief. None of us really expect there's gonna be trespassing and so on. And I think the planning board did a diligent job to include as much as we could in our conditions to mitigate any adverse impact on neighbors. There are other conditions in our decision that may relate to the Department of Health. And we have to conform to, or the town that has to conform to that. Fire and police didn't have any issues, but we have to make accessible access to fire safety. And there's a street that comes off Rosemary that comes into the site. And so I believe there's a condition to ensure public safety access. And I think the town has done a very good job in the design of this to ensure safety throughout the site and easy access in the event of an issue that would require public safety. So I can't recall other specific conditions, but all of the conditions are contained in the decision. And, you know, they're on page 7 of the planning board decision, and they continue, and carry on to page 9. And then we have another, 2 pages of conditions. And then we have other sets of limitations in part of the decision that have further restrictions. But they're fairly administrative, so.
It's pretty straightforward.
If I may,
Let me just say that, you know, we're gonna vote at our next meeting, and before the vote, we'll have ample time to discuss any of the committee members' further concerns that they might have. So, look, why don't we move forward with this,
I'll move to close the hearing.
you know. In a second. Second. All right, do we have to do roll call if everybody's present here? So, yeah,
we're all here present.
Voice
vote. We
We're all
can do
here
a
in
voice
voice
vote.
vote.
yeah, okay, so let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, great. So the hearing is closed. I propose we take maybe a short break, few minutes, and then we'll continue the meeting and then the
Mr. Chair, did you want me to, that the issue not reasonably
Yeah.
anticipated by the chair?
yeah, we'll do that before we close
Yeah.
the meeting.
All right. great.
So let's just take a.
So.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Well, I think just listening. No, it was great to hear. Oh, it's like. Oh, it's the only. That has
So, let's continue the meeting. Before, we close the meeting, Reg Foster has a update on,
Well,
Linda Chambers, right?
it fits into the issues not reasonably anticipated by the chair within 48 hours. So that's why, when I called Dave yesterday, that's 24 hours ago. And I was working my way around to chair persons, I guess we're all chairpersons now, or chairs of various boards, to let him know, both in this capacity and the Conservation Commission chair capacity, that the Needham Housing Authority Board of Commissioners met last Thursday afternoon and received the report of the Proposal Selection Evaluation Committee that's been running since last month, and the RFP for a developer partner for Linden Street redevelopment. That RFP went out in late June. And there was a unanimous recommendation. We got 3 great proposals, all extremely well qualified. We're good. That's very good for us because we could have gotten no proposals.
Right.
And one of the 3 proposals was clearly most advantageous for the Needham Housing Authority in the town of Needham. You know, not that the other 2 couldn't do the job, but both from a technical proposal point of view, and those of you know your procurement, 30B procurement stuff, and non-technical, in other words, the legal terms and prices and fees and so forth as well. And there was a whole presentation, there's a report that was made, and the Housing Authority Board unanimously awarded the engagement to AHSC Peabody Developer LLC, Affordable Housing Services Collaborative, a very well-known couple, 3 decades of experience, nonprofit developer of affordable housing. And they team up periodically and many times before with another long-standing firm, Peabody Properties. In around 30 years, it all comes out of the original Suffolk construction family business. Wambi, a woman-owned minority business. Just knocked it out of the park. And so we actually had a TCHOC meeting on Monday this week, 2 days ago, and it was unveiled there. The Needham Observer, the intrepid reporters, the Needham Observer has been tracking this since last Thursday. It might be an article in the paper tomorrow. We're going before the Conservation Commission tomorrow formally with our public hearing, because it's mostly within the 100-foot wetland zone. So we're gonna
have a 9 PM cutoff.
And I was calling Dave to say, you know, these new folks, they actually want to show up and introduce themselves briefly at that. And then, of course, Adam and Jean, formerly Jean, they will be, you know, leading the presentation to the planning board that's scheduled for September 24th for the site plan review for the Linden Street redevelopment project. They, in his chairman's discretion, decided that it qualified as issues not reasonably anticipated by the chair over the last 48 hours, so that you would hear it here first, because of course the conservation, the CPC has been an amazing supporter of this project, not just this cycle that we just finished doing for the construction funding, but a couple of years ago for the pre-development funding. It was a real act of faith on the part of the town that we could get to this point in time, and I think we're there. Just wanted you all to know that.
Thanks. All right, thanks, Greg. All right. Anybody want to make a motion to close the meeting?
Of course. Well, I think Cecilia,
Oh.
forgive me for interrupting, but Cecilia was gonna give us an update on Christmas opinion about funding categories.
So I know there was a question regarding the funding for the high school tennis courts and whether that could be taken out of the open space bucket of money. And I wanted to just run that by Chris Heap, our town council, and just confirm that it cannot be taken out of open space reserves. The Mass General Law indicates that it needs to be for the acquisition, preservation, or preservation. I think that's a typo. Acquisition, preservation of open space, and this is not, we're not doing anything with open space. It's definitely more recreation leaning, and recreation is that weird category where it makes it eligible for CPA funding, but there's not a bucket dedicated to recreation, so it'll have to come out of the general reserves and free cash.
Okay. That it?
That's all.
All right, thanks. All right,
Question though, if we're going, it's more than our quorum of CPC members remain for this last agenda item, then we have to do it in public meeting, I believe, here, unless you.
say that again.
So how many?
As far as the application workshop?
Yes, right.
Yeah, who's gonna stick around for that?
I am.
I'm interested.
So you would
All right, well, let's-
we want to about
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we can keep the meeting up,
We
right?
can keep the meeting open, but, you know, it might be not the most interesting thing to the general public watching on the video.
Well, I mean, you know, be honest, the whole idea behind the application workshop was for the public. But, I don't know if there's anybody,
We
Still
have,
online.
we have one guest and,
Yeah,
and
Jean.
we have one on Zoom and one in person.
Now,
And it's also
So-
recorded, and so that the
Yeah.
people can come back to it later, that's maybe.
Right.
I'm working on an application myself, and I need some help.
So I'm gonna share my screen and you can go through the presentation. Oh, that's not.
While she's doing that, what is the date of our next meeting, just?
Next week.
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
18, yeah.
Next
But that's, hopefully that'll be a short meeting.
Yeah.
18, yes, to vote.
And then our October meeting, do we have?
We do not have an October meeting. We are,
You're gonna go right into town meeting.
we have town meeting. So we will have a meeting when we meet and convene for town meeting.
I think, you know, one of the things that I was interested in, since I've been on the Community Preservation Committee, is trying to get, more people involved, you know, beyond just town, with projects coming forward. And I know historically there have been projects from, other groups, you know, not necessarily town related. But it seems like there's pitifully few of those, and I looked at, you know, agendas on a lot of other towns. Like, I was hung up on New Bedford, because they have a really good program, and I know Lauren and I have been stealing some of their ideas, some of their presentations and all that, but, this last, their last cycle, they had like 23 applications.
Wow.
And some of them were, you know, a few $1,000s here and there. All
That's
that,
good.
so, you know, maybe we're getting a late start here, but I'd like everybody to be thinking about how we could, you know, gin up some more projects here.
I think it's a good point. I think that, you know, your communication to, you know, about trying to extend access to and knowledge and awareness, I guess, of our fund and what we do. I think it was as widely distributed, I think as probably been going on, and no one showed up. Except Jean
And we have,
and Priscilla
What I would challenge everybody to do is personally reach out to your contacts and whatever, like, I'll give you an example. Like, I'm on the Conservation Commission, and I'm working with the Conservation Commission, we're gonna put something forward this year. But I was just in a meeting, earlier today, so like a tree committee,
Yes,
know,
yes.
and then all of a sudden, I did a little quick Google research and people have submitted applications for tree planting in public spaces, So I'm trying to get, Ed Olson,
Yeah.
to, put in something this year,
Smart.
for a few bucks.
Yeah.
And, get something started. So that's the kind of thing I think,
Really smart.
the members of this committee, maybe, also the, History Center. I've been beating on them for a while, that put
Yeah.
something in.
They have done many projects in the past.
Right, but the past couple of years. Anyway, my point is just, all of us, we gotta try to, use whatever influence we have, whatever networks we have to try to get people interested. And I know Jean has a project she's been working on for, quite a while. Yeah.
Also, Priscilla, I did allow you to unmute yourself, so since this is a relatively small meeting, as we go along, feel free to ask questions.
I mean, I guess we could go through this presentation, quickly, but, I think the two most important aspects are, what kind of projects qualify, and then, what's the timing to get in, and, right now it's, November 1st, right, for the first.
Yes,
The
initial
first applicant.
eligibility applications are due November 1st.
So there's still time to come up with something, and, the initial application isn't that complicated.
Right.
Just trying to whet everybody's appetite, and then,
Mr. Chair, can I just ask too about the balances in each of the accounts that we have?
I
That's
think we,
exactly
yeah,
part of the
Coming up my
presentation.
birthdays.
yeah. So I think most people here know what the categories are.
Yeah.
I don't know if we, need to spend too much time on that. You say you have somebody online. If they have any questions, who's online?
Priscilla Khan.
Priscilla, if you have any questions, feel free to just speak up. You don't have to raise your hand. Yeah, I can't even read that. I'm sorry.
Would you like to present the slides? Or-
I looked over the slides. I thought they were great. I was kind of thinking there'd be people that, needed, get up to speed here on this.
Well, since it's
Yeah.
being recorded and will be available on the website, perhaps we should run through the workshop. So anybody who wasn't able to make it, if they want to go back and view it later, it will be available to them.
And for some of our newer members, I think it's just helpful to
Okay.
to kind of review and be ready to go when we get those applications.
Sure. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought, would you like me to present the slides?
Yeah.
I'd be happy to run them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm having trouble with my vision here.
Okay.
Or
so-
Maureen, you wanna?
Yeah, I can do it. Can I do it sitting down? Just sort of.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yep. So this is just giving a history, a little bit about the Community Preservation Act. We approved it back in May 2004, at the November 2004 town meeting or election. There's a 2.0% surcharge on real estate property taxes, except for the first 100,000 of taxable value. And then that's that's one pot of money, and then Massachusetts Community Preservation Fund annual match is another fund. So we collected, maybe 10 million, we would get a certain percentage from the state. It used to be like a 1-to-1 when we were one of the first towns to sign up for this. It's much lower now, but it is still money that comes to us just for having participated in this program.
Yeah, and that varies year to year based on the real estate activity.
Yeah.
Because I think it comes from like a transfer fee, right?
Yes.
This is just a pie chart showing all the different areas that we can find in community housing, historic preservation, open space, community housing.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. The slides on the screen aren't progressing with you. They're just stuck on the preview.
Oh, okay. Let me stop the share and try it again.
There we go. Right.
So you can see, how the, monies have been allocated. And, at the bottom, you can see that Needham increased its community housing allocation to 22%, just a few years ago, in response to, well, a need, and also having, used a lot of the funding for different, other things like, open space. So that decision was made a few years ago. And, yep, we'll go on to, the revenue for FY 2024. You can see there, a total of $3,903,397. And then, available going forward, as of July 1st. Everybody can read that. I don't think I have to read the figures. This is just, information for us to have, knowing, when we get our applications and what we have to spend. And this is just a good slide that talks about, the four different funding areas and what is allowed within each category. So, you know, open space, you can see you can acquire, create, preserve, but you can't support. So there are just different exceptions in each one of those categories that we have to be careful of and make sure that applications we're reviewing meet those requirements. And then this is just a timeline. This is how things work. We're going to be starting, the applicants are, the initial eligibility applications are due November. And then you can see right down the line, we start reviewing in December. We ask our due diligence questions of the applicants, so they need to respond to us in January. We review them. We ask the applicants to come in and present to us. In the meantime, we're also going and doing site visits. That's part of the due diligence process. And then we consult with Select Board and Finance Committee, and then we hold a public hearing to obtain community input. And then at the end of March, we finally make our recommendation to what we're going to recommend to town meeting. And then we do go to town meeting and we present the articles. And that's a due diligence process. There's questionnaires that are actually quite detailed and very good questions. And so it really does get at the heart of what this funding is going to support. We ask for the documentation like maps and site maps and photographs and things like that. We do our site visits. Again, presentations are made, and then there's public hearings so that we can get feedback from the community. And then just different things that we need to consider when we're reviewing our applications. You know, is it consistent with our goals of CPC plan? Does the project have support from departments, boards, commissions? Will it have a substantial positive impact? Do they have site control for the written consent of the property owner if it's something that's going to be developed like land? Is the project economically or otherwise reasonably feasible to implement and maintain? And is it fully baked? Meaning they're ready to go. They have required variances, special permits, and studies have been completed so that, you know, if we do approve it, they can begin work. CPC liaisons, we're assigned to projects. Each of us will be assigned to a project, or two of us usually, and we will be the liaison between the CPC and the applicant so that any questions we have, we just go back and forth. It doesn't come necessarily to the full committee, but we then come and report back. So that's how we operate. And then just recommending to town meeting. We can recommend a project as proposed by the applicant, or may modify the project, or may recommend partial funding. So that's what happens there. Funded projects, if the town meeting votes to approve funding for a recommended project, we might require the applicant to enter into a grant agreement, which may impose certain conditions for funding, such as affordability restrictions, conservation restrictions, or a deadline by which the project must be completed and the funds expended. We also may require a grant recipient to post a plaque or signage acknowledging the contribution of the community preservation funds. We haven't done that consistently. I think we should, because there's certainly, it's the difference between these projects happening or not. So we'll get on that. The committee will require project status updates from grant recipients periodically, but no less than biannually and upon project completion. And CPA funds are issued to grant recipients on a reimbursement basis. So the recipient must complete a request for project disbursement and submit the form with all appropriate backup documentation to the staff liaison. Recreation, it just gives, it's, that bar is kind of over the top of the, some of that part of the, but anyway, it just gives a description of what recreation, you know, what kinds of recreation projects we're talking about, you know, enhancing recreational uses of and access to Needham's natural and recreational resources. So, we're developing active recreational resources, something we just talked about in tonight's meeting, in fact, encouraging regional bike trails, things like that. Inquiring land to fulfill identified current and future recreational needs. And then just below, you can see there's somewhat recently funded projects. So, Rosemary Recreation Complex being a big one, Reservoir Trail, Claxton Field, and Lights and Diamond, and then the Fisher Street Trailhead. So all different. An open space.
Oh, I've gone beyond.
Going the wrong way.
Forgive me. There we go.
I'm just gonna, this is for developing, using for rehabilitation or restoration of open space that was acquired or created using CPA funds. You can, some of it's preservation, preserving large tracts of undeveloped land, open fields, woodlands, linking and connecting open space resources by providing or improving trails and wildlife corridors, acquiring or controlling additional open space and developing additional public open spaces and parklands, and protecting and maintaining the remaining farmland in town. And then there's a number of projects dating back to 2009. Carol Brewster purchased two lots, Greensfield Park improvements, Rosemary Lake sediment removal, and then the Needham Community Farm receive funding. Historic preservation. I can't read it all, but restoration of historic resources. I know, Lauren, I know you can, but I'm just saying, I'm not, yeah, whatever. It's, we've got historic preservation to protect, preserve, enhance, restore, or rehabilitate the following, like resources of historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance, especially those which are threatened with demolition. Historic properties for adaptive reuse, sites on the Needham Historical Commission inventory, and then this incorporates remodeling, reconstruction, renovation, and making use of extraordinary repairs to historic resources to make historic facilities functional for their intended use, including handicapped accessibility and building code requirements. And a sample of different preservation projects that have been funded. Yeah, most of them just in the last, 4 years. First Baptist Church preservation and the steeple there, preservation of town marriage records, town common historic design, and Emery Grover renovation.
I think the biggie was town hall.
It's not on here, it's not as recent as,
No.
but town hall was a big project, probably the biggest I think we've ever done for historic preservation.
Like the biggest in the state.
And I don't know what the amount is, I was
It
not
was
on
like
it.
20 million.
Okay, so big bucks.
It's a bonded
Yeah, they were-
project too, so you are allowed to, in certain circumstances, to use the funding stream from CPA monies year after year after year to pay the interest and principal on a long-term bond, and that's part of what was done for the first time for the town hall project.
Okay. Next up is community housing, and this is supporting community housing and rehabilitation or restoration of community housing that has been acquired or created using CPA funds. Our plan was informed by Needham Housing Plan, which identified the following priorities and strategies for community housing. Households with limited incomes, need for affordable rental housing, gaps in affordability and access to affordable housing, need affordable home ownership opportunities, special needs housing, need handicapped accessible units and supportive services. So some of the examples of funded community housing projects are High Rock Estates, which is part of the Needham Housing Authority, Charles River Center Group Home, Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which was a COVID, I believe, something came about as a pandemic with people in dire need of financial assistance. Linden Street pre-development and Linden Street redevelopment construction, which is also two projects that are under the Needham Housing Authority. And then that's who you can call and contact, email, and go to our website if there are any questions about what might be eligible for funding. And you can also go to the communitypreservation.org, the coalition. There's also information there, but yes, please, anybody reach out to the people on this slide. We're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Because I think that.
Yeah, well, let's see if
Oh, sure,
anybody in the
yeah.
public has any questions, like,
Priscilla, if you're with us and have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm just very happy that all of these commissions are online now that I never went to before. In past years, even they were of importance to me. And so I like to check in and see what's going on and what's being said and that type of thing. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for tuning in tonight.
And my question has to do with who is the proper applicant for CPA funds? As Dave knows, because he's visited the site with me, this goes back to 4 years to 2020, when I first took an interest in the idea of a boardwalk well, there's two adjacent parcels of land. One is referred to as Sweet Preserve, which is under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission and has frontage on Central Avenue. What I'd like to, if it's all right, I just happen to have an aerial map that I'll give to the chair or.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah, I'd say
it's appropriate to distribute it just so people understand what I'm talking about. So the Sweet Preserve is the parcel that has the frontage on Central Avenue. But the larger the larger wetland parcel is immediately behind, or actually in front of, you might say, if you look at the Hillside School, then in front of the Hillside School, there's playing fields. If you see the playing fields in this that are shown in green, the baseball field. And then beyond the playing field, separated from them by a fence so that natural children don't just wander into the wetland, is a large wetland. And what goes through that wetland is Rosemary Brook. The same Rosemary Brook that feeds Rosemary Lake and then continues, it separates the condominium Rosemary Ridge where I live from the Petrini Apartments, and the boundary line is Rosemary Creek. So why did I take an interest in this? Well, my husband and I go walking out, and our walks take us to this school. It's no longer a school, of course, Hillside School, and the marvelous wetland, but there's no access to it. And I think of the Newman School that has the boardwalk behind it. Yeah. It's just a lovely place to go and walk, and then walk around the wetland, and then not very long kind of walk. So I visited the site that way back in early 2021 with landscape architect Nelson Hammer, who I think then served on the town's design review board. I believe he has since moved out of town, but he served, the town many years as a member of committees. And he visited the site with me and concluded that the Sweet Preserve parcel really doesn't have much feasibility. I guess it doesn't really have any parking. It only has a limited frontage on Central Avenue, but that the enormous parcel, which is all under the jurisdiction of the school committee, both the school parcel, the play fields, and then the big wetland is under the jurisdiction of the school committee. That is really where you'd have access to a nice boardwalk And of course, people come to that playground, even now while the school is closed, and enjoy the playground. People can park, people can use that as another facility. So, I visited the site. The Conservation Commission staff was very interested and helpful. Deb Anderson and Clay Hutchinson visited the site with me. And then later, in I think just in 2023, Dave Herrer visited the site with me. And the difficulty and the question I have is that the parcel remains under the jurisdiction of the school committee. And so in my communications with Superintendent Gutenchance, his advice was always, wait. This is premature. I mean, I have email communication that goes back to 2021. And then again, in 2023, he said, wait at least a year, you know, because it's being used, as we know right now, for the, you know, the renovation of the Emory Grover School. The staff is all there at the Hillside School. It cannot, you know, we are anticipating school expansion and construction projects, but I was told, and I have email or communication too with the school department personnel saying that with the Andrea Longo Carter School Department, that they've discovered that the building cannot be used as a swing space for children because of its environmental contamination. It would take it's one thing to have adults in an office environment there, but it's a different thing to have children. So it's not feasible that that be used as swing space for the children who are, you know, while other schools are being renovated. So, Guggenkamp said, wait a year. It is a year now. Emory Grover is not finished. The school administration is still working there. If I tried to pull something together for the November 1st date, who would the applicant be? And she. And
Yeah,
so
I can address that.
Yeah.
Quickly. I mean, this is something that the Conservation Department, the Conservation Commission would support 100%. But, you know, as we discussed last year, to move forward without the, you know, I've used the word acquiescence of the school department, it just won't go anywhere. You know, they have to approve it. And I think that if this were presented maybe to the select board or something, that might light a fire under some people, you know, to get to the school department. And get them to accept this project, because otherwise, you know, we'll just be spinning our wheels. But I'll tell you this, and I never really got back to you on this, because you know, it seemed like, you know, wait a year was a realistic option.
That's the last
That,
word.
I think if you look north of the school, where the walkway is.
Yes, there's the walkway that I mentioned that goes to West Street, and then
Right.
you have to go up.
That's also a
Then you have
sewer,
to go to school. But
that's
then-
also a sewer easement for the town.
Yes,
And it's under private ownership. And I, at one point, I looked up the owner. And I was thinking maybe that would be another access point
yes, you did say that.
to go to
Dave.
the owner and get him to maybe give an easement to have an entrance to a boardwalk. Cause I agree 100%, you know, from you know, park and rec point of view, conservation point of view, you know, it'd be really nice to have like just an in and out boardwalk there. And in fact, we had some pictures of what a nice boardwalk would be like. And, you know, it wouldn't be terribly expensive. It'd be maybe, you know, $150,000, you know, something that, maybe a little more, but, you know, that's just a ballpark.
It's not clearly shown on this aerial map, but if you look at where the school, the end of the school is on the northern end of where the baseball field is. If you just keep walking, there's a path.
Yeah, that's
It's not very clear. It's on private property, but it is undoubtedly another utility easement held by the town. And then that takes it up to residential streets that then go to Honeywell Street. So there's another access, and that's another, like, if people want to go for a walk, that's another direction. But the question is now, could the Needham Land Trust, I'm on the board of the Needham Land Trust, we take an interest in conservation. We hold two conservation restrictions on town property. In order to satisfy the Community Preservation Act that requires if property is acquired with CPA funds, it needs to be a restriction, you know. So we report every year on that property. We don't have any other projects in the town. It may be that the Needham Land Trust is meeting on October 7th, we meet quarterly. But it would a private nonprofit be an appropriate applicant for a project like this, even though, of course, you have to get the school committee.
Yeah, I mean, that.
Could I,
That would.
I was there.
Can I just finish? Oh, the key thing is to get the school committee to agree to this. If that doesn't happen, I don't think that it's gonna move forward. It certainly wouldn't move forward in this committee if, you know, the land entity, the entity that's controlling the land doesn't agree. I mean, because that thing has come up before.
So
that.
I
you know,
I very
that-
much appreciate.
As far as, you know, sponsoring it, whatever, you know, like I said, the Conservation Department, Conservation Commission would be more than happy to sponsor this, if it does, it wouldn't, you know, would entail, you know, getting permission and whatever, a permit from the Conservation Commission. So that's one avenue, and, you know, if there's, you know, the Needham Land Trust, I mean, I don't see a problem with that either. If that.
Have you reached out, Jane, to the school?
Excuse me?
Have you reached out recently?
I haven't reached out since a year ago when I had communication with the school department.
So
and I
Reg,
have-
you were.
I have
Yeah, I actually.
email exchange from that
Right.
communication, but
Concrete historical information to bear on this situation, because I happened to be on the CPC back in 2012. And I'm looking at the application for the trails that were built near Newton School area. and so forth.
yeah, great. Oh,
And I can email this application around to you and everybody else, and then I'll send it to Lauren and so forth. And so the applicant in that case was the school department,
Okay,
but because they have site control, they own the land. You know, it's really the decision of the school department, and the school committee has to approve that decision to do anything like this whatsoever. And if you look at our detailed due diligence document that we now have been using for 2 or 3 years, one of the fundamental questions is who owns the land or the site or whatever it is. Who owns the historical records? In some cases, it was the town clerk who had these 200-year-old marriage files that they wanted to digitize. So you just couldn't come in there from some other party saying, I'd like to have online access for historical research purposes. It was actually the town clerk that did that. And in this case, whoever did it back then, I don't know how it came about, but it came before us as a sort of joint. The primary applicant was the school department, but it was very strongly supported by the Parks and Recreation Department at the time. Sort of like what happened with the tennis courts. The tennis courts actually, you know, is a school thing, but the Parks and Rec uses it in the summer, so they both teamed up and that, you know. And one of the things that this board our committee has faced over and over again is, what is our role? Is our role to you know, initiate proposals or to, you know, or is it really our role to ensure that other, you know, what comes before us is actually a priority of other town boards and committees and, you know, like Parks and Rec or schools that they are coming to us saying, this is the top priority for spending the limited amount of CPA funds that we might have.
Thank you very much, Rich. I had
And they
no
put
idea.
1.4 million, just to give
It
you,
was
get you
1.4
excited about
million?
things.
Oh, wow.
And in total project cost, but they asked about $150,000. They also with twin benefits. So the problem was really the Newman Fields were flooding at different times. And it was caused by the fact that I think there was a marsh there that got turned into Newman Field at the time. But there's also an opportunity, there's the Eastman Conservation Area at Newman here. And so they came up with this idea of, sort of doing a two-for benefit thing so that would, have to be looked at as a higher priority.
Right, but I think, again, the key, to all of this is the approval of the scope and,
All right,
the rest of it, I think, is simple.
Itself, threshold issue.
Right, exactly. I mean,
so I think I'll get in touch again with school staff and, let me say, it is a year now. I was advised wait a year. Is this something that I could bring before the school committee? And it would have to be pretty soon because I have a deadline of November 1. And if I'm told, oh, it's premature still, wait another year, well, then so.
Well, waiting a year is usually you work on it all year, you don't come just 2 months ahead of time. Wait a year means you're gonna be working on getting the school board to get excited about the
Oh, yeah,
project.
I
And
know.
lining up
Right.
the open space, people in town and lining up the recreation people in town and educating them on what was funded back in 2013 and saying, why don't we do something like this again?
Yeah.
But you gotta go sell it.
Well, how can I get more information about that project? What was it?
Go out and have a copy. Now I'll send you what I've got.
Thank you.
I keep everything, so you made me take my computer out and look it up here, so.
Okay.
But there's a file at the
Very much
time for that all approval, there was presentations. That was done, it was everything we've seen, was done back then, to kind of not just win over the CPC, that this was a worthy, expenditure of funds, but also eventually you have to win over town meeting too, so.
Well, it's very helpful to know that there was a project like this funded by the CPC back in 2012, 2013.
Well, there was,
Supported by in fact, the applicant was the school department.
there was the project at Ridge Hill, the boardwalk area, so.
That's true.
Yeah, so the project, it's a good project. I've been out there, we've talked
Yes,
about,
you were
I
very
think it's a
supportive.
fantastic project and I think it would have no problem
Ah,
getting support.
And they sold it, I'm just reading the application, they sold it, if we got that boardwalk in there, there would be educational opportunities for the kids to use it like a nature walk. It's not just
Which
is.
my son has benefited from.
You were talking about the Newman.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic place.
Yeah.
They got a giant turtle there that my kids. The thing's about 50 years old. But, Gene, the other thing I wanted to mention, if you want to pursue and I'll help you if you want, the private landowner.
that private landowner on the edge of the property.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That might be a quicker way to get something.
all right, I'll keep that in mind. At least I can do the research.
'Cause I think,
The
I don't.
property owner is,
Yeah.
who holds the easement that goes across it, so it's the town.
Yeah, I don't know this for a fact, but I would think that the objection of the school department is more like they don't know what they're gonna be doing with that site.
That's
and
my
that,
objection. Yeah.
Not that they don't want anything out in the wetland, right? So
No, I've
yeah.
never been told that.
anything
I've
other
always
than
just
what-
been told.
Yeah,
that
so
future use of the property. is
so
one
if there was
thing.
another access point, that would,
So
that would be good. And I agree that the access from the other end of, the other party is not a good access.
So my memory is fuzzy, but it's what's in it for them? In other words, it turned out to get the flooding issues dealt with the fields. And then somebody dreamed up back then that, and this could be an educational thing for the kids, to learn about, nature or natural environment or something like that.
Wasn't that project like initiated by the school department?
The application says that. I know the Parks and Rec people were in there.
Yeah, so, here, I think it's slightly different, but,
One thing about the access point that Dave, you mentioned is that it is farther away, in fact, it's quite far away from the stream that kind of goes through the property. If you look at this again, you see on West Street, you see lot number 257. I think that is a town of Needham property that's part of our water supply
Yeah,
system.
yeah.
Next to the stream goes in a channel under West Street and then emerges. And you can see it going just back up the school, back up the playfields. You can see that dark line. And then connecting up and going over towards Central Ave. The parcel you're speaking of, it doesn't really have much access to the really interesting part of the wetland.
well, that's the purpose of the boardwalk, right? You go out into the.
Well, maybe, but.
Yeah,
Those details can be, I think.
Yeah, it couldn't go very far into the wetland without
Yeah.
involving the school department.
Right, and I
layout.
don't-
You just could.
I don't think,
Don't look into the ownership and.
I think it's worth a shot.
But,
I think it's worth a shot.
just to see.
It
Um,
was-
All right, thank you. I think it sounds like getting back to the school department is what I need to do. And if they say next year, gee, don't wait till September.
Yeah, if you want somebody from the Conservation Commission to be by your side there.
Oh, really? Oh, good.
I'll go, or we'll get somebody. from the
Okay, why
Conservation.
don't I reach out and then if that's a possibility, yeah, that'd be great to have that kind
Yeah,
of
but-
support.
This is not gonna be a negative thing.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask one thing about the presentation? That
Sure,
just
yeah,
like a
I
little-
didn't mean to put you.
No,
off
no,
there,
no,
but,
no, no, this
the
is actually,
public-
I mean,
The public comes.
I
first.
also, I had two children at Newman and we totally benefited from that board. They loved walking out there. And it really was
Yeah.
an education experience. So I think it's a great idea.
There's no signs out there yet.
But well, we're gonna work on that. So, But just a
Go
quick,
CPA.
right, just a quick, just a tiny suggestion that the presentation was great. Maybe we should link to the Needham projects, that page that has like all the projects, because I think it does give a good snapshot of like what the CPC funds or what the CPA funds are capable of. And I also just, only because I, as a relatively new member still, the acquired or created with the CPA funds was kind of a sticking point. And I was just looking at this big list and it may be here already, but like, for example, I see this on some of these, I don't have the slide to reference, but like, it'd be interesting to see some note of what out of these projects, what properties have been acquired or created by CPA funds, so that we would know like, oh, like, for example, I see something from Mills, we know DeFazio, right? So we know that we can do work there because we've done it in the past, but it might be nice to see like, we're adding a ton of work, or like a little list of.
I think that applies just to housing.
Oh, is that?
Yes, in other words, we, initially, before you were here, there was a funding application from Seabeds and Cook to, because we're doing a, $30 million renovation there as well. And we initially overlooked that factor and we applied for $1 million of pre-development funding there as well. And then as it turned out, because Seabeds and Cook were not built with CPA funding in the first place, it wasn't eligible for, like Melinda Chambers was built by the town, okay? It wasn't eligible.
And Rich, that only in the community housing
Yes,
bucket?
yes.
Oh, so that doesn't apply, okay, maybe I
Yeah.
didn't see it, oh, okay.
It also applies to open space.
So like, I think that's the part, because to me, that seems like it has like a lot of flexibility and maybe would really kind of stir up interest in the public. If they go to, because we have so many wonderful open spaces, right? But we don't get to go to them all the time, depending on what kind of, how old your kids are, what parks you visit. But like, it might be nice to see, oh, well, here's 5 or 10 parks, and this is a park that I go to and it needs some kind of improvements, and maybe CPA could help with it.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know, just a little.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Send that link, which I'm sure. Laura-
Yeah.
I know what.
You
page
know
it is
exactly what
that
it is,
you're
yeah,
talking
Laurie,
about.
it was,
The
it's
list
great
of
to see it,
projects.
yeah, exactly, because I think it really does like
So
kind
you'd
of
like me to
frame.
go through the list of open space projects, and of those, which properties were
I think-
acquired with CPA?
I think that would be very helpful, and even at the end of your, well, you know, and when you're given those examples, which were wonderful, but just a link to this page that has all the projects that we've done since, what, May, I mean, that's since 06 or 05. That would be kind of nice to like kind of frame to get people's, you know, imaginations going, I think.
Okay.
All right,
That's a good thought. Yeah.
To adjourn?
who wants to make a
Second.
motion? You made a motion, you second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Great, thank you, guys, thank you.
Good job.
Nice, Cecilia.
All right, so you can-